What's happening? Jeb and Flo back again on the Street Parking Podcast channel. Good to have you here with us. I don't know what I would call this episode. I wanted to talk about self-esteem. It's something I've been thinking about a little bit. It was a term that got thrown around a lot when I was much younger. We talk about it as it relates to children. But then as we get older, it sort of fizzles out. And there's a lot of relation to that with happiness, confidence, stuff like that. So I was thinking about just this idea, or even the term self-esteem, which if you look at the definition and things like that, it's basically self-respect or self-confidence, the belief in one's own ability or worth, like self-worth. And if you look at the word esteem, it has to do with respect or admiration. And I talk about the idea of self on here a lot. And if you've been paying attention, I could probably be explaining the self in a lot of different ways. But if you keep sort of asking questions or trying to peel away the layers of what is the self, they're all related and they all kind of come back to the same thing. But the idea of respect or admiration for yourself, I think, is very compelling, especially when you start to think, well, what is the self? So we've all probably heard the phrase, you are what you eat. You are what you repeatedly do. You are what you pay attention to. Or maybe you are just the witness to all of that. But if you think about it, all of those things really come back to a sense of repetition, a sense of consistency. Yourself is associated with the things that are happening either intentionally or not in your world and in your life, happening repeatedly, consistently, and over time. So who you are on the inside and how you manage that can be largely affected by the stuff that is around you on a day-to-day basis, or perhaps the stuff that you pay attention to on a day-to-day basis, or perhaps how you feel about the things that you are around or paying attention to on a day-to-day basis. So self-esteem really can include or be affected by your own beliefs about yourself, could be affected or influenced by your environment, sort of the mini culture that you are around every day, the culture at large of maybe the country that you live in or the city, that kind of thing. And then your emotional states. Some of those things we have more control over than others. I think most of those things we have more control over than we might think. So starting with the beliefs about oneself. Where do those beliefs come from? And I was thinking about it, especially when it comes to the beliefs in terms of confidence, belief in yourself. I think it comes from being tested. So in terms of like a task or a challenge of whether or not you could rise to that challenge, there's three options for beliefs. You believe that you can be successful. You might believe that you cannot achieve the task or accomplish the goal. Or maybe you just accept that you're not sure. If you believe that you can, that will reinforce your self-esteem. That will reinforce the confidence that you have in yourself. And it might actually be the determining factor in whether or not you actually can. I think it was Henry Ford, at least that's who I heard was the one that said it, but I have not confirmed this. But there's a great quote, whether you believe you can or can't, you're right. I love that. Because if you don't think that you're going to be able to do something, if you really believe, hey, I can't do that, then you're not going to do it. You're probably not even going to try. And that will weaken your self-esteem because you don't have any confidence in your ability to be able to do that thing. The one that I really like, where you're not sure, but you do it anyway. If you're not sure, if you're like, I don't know if I could do this, but I'm going to try it. And whatever happens, either I fail and I learn and I get better and maybe I try again, or I do it. But having that little bit of uncertainty, that really is being tested. Being tested means that there's a chance that you're going to fail, and being okay with that. And when there's that little bit of uncertainty where you're unsure whether you can or can't, the outcome isn't, maybe it's 50-50, well, that is where your self-esteem and your self-confidence will expand. Even if you don't actually successfully accomplish the task. And I'll put an asterisk, it's a funny word, by that, because it depends on your attitude towards being unsuccessful. If you think about, let's say Muhammad Ali, we could get into the debate, who's the greatest boxer ever of all time, but we'll say Muhammad Ali, right? Muhammad Ali was the greatest boxer of all time, one of the greatest talkers of all time. That dude could hype a fight, he could sell a fight, and he could make everybody around him believe that he was the greatest. But how would we know if Muhammad Ali only sat in the dark or in an isolated room and shadowboxed for his entire career? Maybe he would be the greatest, maybe he wouldn't. But no one would ever know because he would never have been tested. And having never been tested, I think the chances would be very slim that he would be able to talk the way that he talked. So it was that self-talk that was a result of him being successful in competition that allowed him to maybe be more successful and gain more confidence in a competition, which then he would emerge victorious, which then would allow him to speak about in even bigger terms about how great he was, which then might give him even more confidence to accomplish even more things. So it's this feedback loop. And then it can be this upward spiral. And I'm not saying everyone needs to run out here and start screaming that they're the greatest in the world, but that's kind of an extreme example about beliefs. If you believe in yourself, I think you would be more likely to accomplish the thing that you're setting out to accomplish. And if you're okay with maybe it not working out the way that you really want it to work out, and when that happens, look at, hey, what can I learn from this? What could I have done differently or done better? I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to make that little change. See what happens. If it still doesn't work out, who cares? So that's kind of with the respect to the beliefs about oneself, how that might influence your overall self-esteem, confidence in yourself. But you also have things like your environment and emotional states. Kind of, I don't know why I just thought about this. This is sort of on the subject, sort of not. But this morning, I went out to pull my trash cans and recycle bin in because yesterday was the pickup day. Except the recycle was still full. They didn't pick it up. And this is the second time that that's happened. And I don't know why I got like so angry this morning that they didn't pick up the recycling. And this probably, I would say generously, this maybe was in a period of 10 seconds. Probably it was in a period of like 2 seconds because the speed of thought is very fast. But I went from, they didn't pick up the recycle, I'm angry, I'm going to call them. Now that's going to take up time out of my morning. I have so many things to do. How am I going to get everything done? What am I doing with my life? You know, it was just like this. It was so fast. I got whipped up into this like crazy, anxious and emotional state. And, you know, it took, I had to then start laughing basically because I was like, this is so ridiculous. I can't believe how fast that happened. And, you know, I've been kind of studying and working on my own psychology and managing my emotions and developing these tools and acquiring these different tools over the course of like more than a decade. And even I've shared before, like this story a long time ago about between me and my roommate, me getting super pissed at my roommate again, because I didn't get the trash and the recycle out in time for it to be picked up. So it didn't get picked up. For whatever reason, 12, 15 years later, it was like that still triggered something in me. Way back then, it pissed me off for the entire day. Today, it pissed me off for about 2 to 10 seconds. So the tools work, but I bring that up because there is no one, if you're a human being, nobody is above or beyond those thoughts or those initial instincts, reactions, and that kind of thing. I think we all have it. It's then what we choose to do with it that we have control over, and that can really play out and express itself in the quality of our life. So anyone thinks that like I'm like the JEB and flow guy or whatever, that I don't deal with irrational beliefs, behaviors, fears, and anxieties. Oh yeah, I get them on a hourly basis, but you know, I enjoy the challenge of trying to apply different tools and stuff like that to them. So kind of in line with the idea of emotional states being able to affect your self-esteem, your self-worth, self-confidence, and that kind of thing. One thing that I thought was really interesting, I think the two kind of extreme ends of emotion, and in there is an emotion version of fear and love, but then I think fear and love are also, they extend a little bit beyond emotional states. But what's interesting is that right in the middle of your brain is, you've got this limbic system, and it's a few different things, one of which is the amygdala. The amygdala gets talked about a lot because it is the part of your brain that will perceive threats, danger, and it is responsible for fear and aggression, but it also is involved in the feeling and the expression of love. So how can that be possible? So what happens is when the amygdala gets stimulated, and let's say it is in the form of fear, there's some kind of a threat, it signals to another part of this limbic system, the hypothalamus, to tell your body to release adrenaline. And adrenaline is that sense of that fight or flight response where your heart rate spikes and your pupils dilate and your breathing rate changes and you might start sweating a little bit, or maybe your mouth gets dry. We've all felt it. So that is some signaling that is happening between amygdala, hypothalamus to the rest of your body. Now, what's interesting is when you feel love, the amygdala still signals to the hypothalamus, which then signals to a different gland, I believe, to release different hormones, dopamine, oxytocin, and some others. But those are the two big ones that I like to talk about. So the part of your brain that's getting stimulated, it's almost like it doesn't really matter. I mean, obviously it does, but it's the reaction, it's the response that really makes a difference. It's the hormones that get released in your body that really make a difference. What's cool about love in terms of falling in love with another person is that when you meet somebody, when you're attracted to them, when maybe you start to get a sense that they might be attracted to you, that feeling is the same as fear or anxiety. It's excitement. How you perceive it might be different depending on your past experiences, beliefs, and that kind of thing. But when you first start falling in love, everybody knows that feeling. It's like that there's butterflies in your stomach, and when you think about the person, your heart goes pitty-pat, pitter-pat, whatever, right? It literally is the same thing. You've got adrenaline coursing through your body. As that love grows and the relationship deepens, there's this transition where it's no longer adrenaline and there's no longer fear and anxiety, and it transitions to calm, contentment. They're literally oxytocin, the hormone oxytocin, plays a huge role in social bonding. There's a huge surge of oxytocin when a woman gives birth. I mean, it goes up during pregnancy, and then I think it goes up even more after birth. When the father starts bonding with the new baby, they've done studies, and after a year, the father's oxytocin levels are also spiked. They're very high because there's this bonding that happens. So dopamine is like basically a reward hormone. Like when your body feels rewarded, it's getting hit with dopamine, which is why people like that little dopamine hit, which comes from good things and bad things. So anyways, what's pretty crazy is that falling in love is like this roller coaster that goes from this really high, and there's nervousness and anxiety and whatnot, and then it goes into this chill kind of state. Sometimes we get to that chill state and we're like, oh, well, the spark is gone or whatever. And it's like, well, if you want to call fear and anxiety the spark, then yes, you're right, because you have grown and evolved and bonded past that. Now, you can reignite some of that stuff if you want. There's a million ways to reignite it. It's fun. Do things that are exciting. But what's cool is that bond continues to grow and get stronger. And so those are what that social bonding, that sense of contentment, that feeling of security of knowing that someone is there. And it doesn't have to be like romantic love. It can be really good friends or people around you, your parents, siblings, family members, whatever. But that sense can really help add to the feeling of respect and admiration for yourself, because it's coming from outside of yourself. Which brings me to the environmental states. If you are in an environment where there's people around you whose opinions that you care about, and they are repeatedly saying, you're not good enough, you're stupid, you're weak, you can't do that, well, you're going to start believing it. And it's really hard to get away from that, because when you have that essentially trauma, it becomes imprinted on you. Again, another part of that limbic system in your brain is the hippocampus, which stores a lot of memories. And so then you can take fear, anxiety, aggression, all these things, and then now they get associated with a memory, and it gives it a lot of power. But if you think about it, it's something that has already happened a long time ago, has nothing to do with right now, something that you could get away from in an instant, the memory I'm talking about. But we give those things a lot of power. So the environment is a tough one. It's a tough one because when you're in it, it feels like you can't get out of it. And even in like a state of depression, when you're in a depressed state, you might know, this is what I need to do to get out of it. But you're in a depressed state, so you don't want to do anything. And you feel like you can't do anything. And you feel like nobody cares about you or whatever, and they're not going to help you either. You know? So there's a lot of power in having respect and admiration, confidence in yourself. If you're not careful, you can allow a lot of other things outside of you to affect that and influence that sense. And I think the best thing in terms of getting a better sense of self-esteem, self-confidence, and then getting to where you can expand it is honestly just by questioning things. So, like I mentioned, what we experience consistently plays a huge role in all of this. You are what you eat, right? What you eat repeatedly determines the composition of your body. And what you repeatedly pay attention to determines the composition of your mind. And what you repeatedly feel about what you are paying attention to, that determines the composition of your heart, of your soul, of whatever you want to call it that's not your body or your mind, that other thing. So what gets repeated is the thing that makes you who you are in relation to the world around you. If we can start playing with that and observing what is getting repeated in and around us, then maybe we might feel like there's some little tweaks we could make, some improvements. So here is the action item for the week. Very simple. I want you to just ask questions. and pick one of these. What am I eating? What am I focusing on? What am I feeling about this? If you're somebody that is trying to change your nutrition habits because you want to make some changes to your health, it's really hard. And if we have poor habits, there can be a lot of things, emotions, history, genetics, how we've been, previous habits, how long we've had those habits for, can really put up a really good fight against what you want to be doing. But I think one of the best weapons against that is to just say, what am I eating? So if you're looking at your food and you ask, what am I eating? If you've got a nice plate of like fresh, leafy green veggies and fruits and maybe some lean protein and a little bit of avocado or something like that, like you can look at that and be like, wow, this is like nourishment. This is good stuff. This is fuel. My body is going to appreciate this. My brain is going to function better as a result of this. If you got just like this grease bomb, fried bacon covered cheese thing, and you're looking at it, and it's going to be great. It's going to be delicious. It was designed to be amazing. But if you ask yourself, what am I eating? What am I eating? If you do that every time you eat, you're probably going to stop even craving those types of things. It's going to be less appealing to you. So it's the same thing with what am I focusing on? When you look around or when you have a heightened emotional state, you notice that you're just like a little bit higher, a little bit emotionally aroused in some way. Ask yourself, as soon as you feel that sensation, ask yourself, what am I focusing on right now? Like, what am I really focusing on right now? If it's not something that serves you, you can change it. But you're not going to know unless you ask that question. What am I feeling about this is a little trickier. If you want to do this question, my recommendation is that you set an alarm on your phone to go off at like a random time each day. So maybe it's like 1:42. And as soon as that alarm goes off or reminder on your phone, what am I feeling? What am I doing right now? What am I feeling about this? Not how am I feeling? What am I feeling? Because it's not you. There's just a feeling. What is that feeling? Put a little distance between yourself and that feeling. And you'll hopefully recognize that you have a lot of control over that as well. So that's the action item. Those 3 things. Ask questions. Know that the confidence that you have in yourself doesn't mean that you have to change yourself. All you have to do is just start to notice and pay attention to and recognize the things about yourself that are awesome, because you're awesome. So week after week after week, I'm not sitting here trying to say that you're not good enough and that you need to change. I'm just saying you're awesome. Point out some cool things about yourself. And then you'll start to believe and reinforce your own awesomeness. And it's that awesome upward spiral, that feedback loop of positivity. Enjoy it, play with it, ask questions, ask me questions, hit up the hotline, DM me, however you want to get to me. I love you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll talk to you soon.